I'm curious. So, Brendan, when you were running through like your sales decks, what do you think is like the best flow? Um, from what I've
Ooh.
seen with like agencies I've worked for, it's so much talking about them. The prospect's eyes like start to glaze over, right? It's like I'm not here to hear about you. In reality, I'm here to talk about me and what you
Mm-hmm.
can do for me. So when I'm building my own sales deck, I'm kicking off with a slide that's like, let's talk about you first, and then we'll talk a little bit about us. Is that a good flow in your experience? And maybe this is agency world, but maybe I'm depending too much on a deck. Maybe it doesn't have to have a deck. Maybe it's just an organic conversation. But based on the agency world, there seems to be like a level of polish and professionalism with a deck. But again, maybe that's a world that I've lived in for way too long. Curious what your thoughts are.
And this is only for like one piece of what we offered. I discovered in our offer, all of our clients were using Drift and HubSpot Chat and Intercom, and we weren't helping them with that, but it was siphoning conversions away from the work we were doing. And I'm like, we should help them. So we had our designer talk about like, here's how we do conversational marketing, and here's like, how we work, and we're Drift certified and all of these things. But it was very much like still like, us, here's how we think, we're real smart, us. We also used to do very much these slides, like here's a thing, and then, oh, we've been on all of these websites, and these are our clients, and this is our tech stack. These suck. Nobody cares. I mean, to your point, Taylor, like nobody cares about this. Nobody cares that we were creating our own tool. Nobody cared that we had our own like courses and our account management framework and our approach. We are on slide 10 and we still haven't talked about the client. They have tuned out. They're checking email at this point, right? And this is a really big deal because this is a lot of sales decks. Like they've already booked the call. They know about you. You don't need like I call it like selling past the close, right? Like you're giving them stuff that they should already know. So when I went out on my own and started doing growth sprints, I have this like very boringly titled case studies and capabilities deck. And I would run clients through this. I would run through my questions during the thing, which I can show you an example of here in a moment, like how I go through these conversations. But like I would go through this and I'd be like, oh, I'll send this to you. And look, it's like similar stuff, right? Like, oh, here's the problem. Customer acquisition is the most important thing, right? So here's my customer acquisition process, and here's a case study that goes with each part of my unique framework. And here's some smart people saying nice things. And then here's how I would present the traffic projection tool that we have in Blueprint, right? And I would be like, oh, this is an example. Then I would say like, would this be helpful for me to put this together for you? And they'd be like, oh my gosh, yes. And that would give me permission to book the next call, right? Like call one is discovery. Plus I talk about myself. What I did was I switched and I decided instead of talking about myself in the first call, I have Calendly automatically sent, and I send this to them probably like 5 times to make sure they watch it. I just have this quick video. The normal video is 7 minutes, and I won't make everybody watch it here, but like just so we can jump through, you can kind of see like it's the similar deck that we talked about. Like it's similar pieces. I'm just kind of reading through that deck. And it's not even updated. Like, when did I record this? 11 months ago? I need to do a new one, right? But it's just me talking through this. And I literally say at the beginning, I'm sending this to you. So on our first call, we don't have to talk about me. And also you can decide if you still think we're good, I would be an ideal partner for you. We hop on that first call and I say, hey, did you have a chance to check out the video? And they'll say yes or no. And if they say yes, I always say, was that helpful? I know the answer is yes. I still ask that because it's kind of like an old school sales technique to get people to say yes a bunch of times in a row. And then when you ask the real question, their brain is already cued to say yes. But was that helpful? Yes. Cool. What resonated the most in that video that you watched? And they immediately tell me the thing they like the most about my service. Thank you. And they're selling themselves, right? And then they'll be like, oh, I don't really remember. Cool, now it gives me a chance to highlight something that I think would be really helpful. So that's a big piece of it too. We get all of this done ahead of time. So that first call is all about them. Now, if they haven't watched it, I'll still talk through it and everything. I also go through, I call it like a sales call template where I just literally fill this in. A lot of this comes through in the Calendly that they fill out. So I just paste that in and I just clarify with them. Cool. Sounds like this is your goal. Does that sound about right? What have you tried so far? How did that work for you? What else have you tried in the past? What's working for you right now? Who are competitors, et cetera? And then I just kind of, it's called Sell Them the Vacation. This is a pretty standard sales kind of talk track almost. I learned most of this by watching like 20 hours of Alex Hormozi videos back when he used to talk about sales all the time. And then that's call one. And that books the second call where I'm going to present the traffic projection tool. But I also say like, I love this phrase. Hey, before we get started, and I add like, it's such a nice thing to do on calls because it lets them know like the official sales call hasn't started yet. Like this is just us as friends chatting. Hey, before we get started, has anything changed since the last time we talked? Cool, get some better context, et cetera, et cetera. All right, cool. Goal for today on the second call is that you have confidence that we'd be a great fit to work together, that you'd be comfortable pitching this internally, and then we can align on investment, make sure that's still a fit, right? And then I just kind of like walk through some things. I almost never get to like, I don't have to explain away concerns because most of the people that come to me have already vetted me. I'm not doing like cold outbound where they're like kind of not sure if they even need this. And then these questions are great to steal at the end here. Cool, so what are next steps? What's the timeline that you're on? Cool, what happens if we miss that timeline? Then what should we do? All right, assuming all that goes well, then what? If this doesn't work out, why might that be? And then what can we do to solve that? Right, these are, I don't want to say picked the brain, but I interviewed a lot of like really good sales reps, and that's where a lot of these things came from. You literally asked me about sales calls and like not talking about ourselves too much, but I wanted to actually, I just prefer showing and giving you value of like, this is kind of how I think about it. Is that helpful?
Yeah, so it sounds like you send them the video, which runs them through capabilities, case studies, who you are, and then calls after that. There's really no slide presentation unless it's like a scope or proposal review, or I guess even the traffic projection tool. Other than that, it's just chatting, conversation based.
Yeah, the second call is fully, here's the traffic projection, here's what's interesting, some initial research. I don't do like a top 10 analysis anymore because I would rather, instead of like, here's like, let me overwhelm you with everything that's wrong. And, you know, we would always be like, well, you present them as opportunities. It still makes people feel bad when you're just sitting there being like, needs to be fixed, this needs to be fixed, this needs to be fixed. And I found that instead of qualifying you, a lot of times that's the way people disqualify you. It also depends on how savvy the people you are talking to. Like I'm selling into high performing marketing teams at software companies. This is very different than if I was selling to like local attorneys, right? Who know they need marketing, but they're not marketers. I'm selling to marketers that are as good as me. So the way I sell has to be different, right? I think that piece is pretty crucial. That'll be helpful context for everybody. So yeah. The first call is that discovery call. Second call is growth. I call it a growth projection because it aligns with growth sprints, but traffic projection. And then we walk through the scope and then we do those questions kind of at the end of like, does this still seem like a fit? What's the timeline, et cetera, et cetera. And then after that, the only time I do a third call is if they're not responding or we're missing, like they told me the timeline and I'm 2 or 3 emails with no response. I'll send an email that says like, there might be some gaps I can fill in. Would love to hop on a quick 15-minute call with you this week, that type of thing, but almost always just like 2 calls.
Great, that's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. What are you doing right now?
Well, I'll be perfectly honest, I am just starting. So I have like my first sales call today, and a lot of what I've been doing is trying to figure out how I want to approach things. Probably taking a little bit too long to figure that out. So I have a starting point and I was looking for some feedback. So I'll have a test run today with a low stakes client, which will be nice just to get some reps in before I try to swing for a target ICP.
Yeah, absolutely. I think just getting into like their pain point, I use a lot of like, it's called mirroring. There's a really good book called Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. And there's a lot of good stuff in there. Mirroring is just literally repeating somebody's words back to them as a question, and then they'll go deeper. They're like, yeah, that hasn't been working great. And you'll go, that hasn't been working great. And they'll then tell you more about that versus being like, why? Like that, asking why, or like, tell me more about that, or what does that look like? Any way you can get them to get like 3 or 4 layers deep of like what the actual issue is, then you can like really focus on that. I'll give you a quick example of that. I had a client that is now a client. What we found out in the discovery process is they have these really rough quarterly business reviews, these QBRs at their company. and they are just getting crushed by sales. Sales is always like, we are the ones carrying everything across the finish line. All your leads are bad. Any money the company makes is from us. And like a big way that I sold into that company was talking through like, we need to fix this contentious relationship with sales. I've been there. Here's 3 examples of me being there. Not only are we going to get results, that's table stakes, but a really great outcome would be like a better service level agreement and better SLA with sales. And they were like, that would be amazing. And I think that's a big reason that I closed the deal, because I dug into the real pain point, the real frustration, you know, because they could still get great results and sales would still be giving them a bunch of crap. So things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. That sounds good. Yeah, my first call today is with a founder. So I know that you've talked about any sort of like yellow flags with working with founders.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to see, based on what you've shared, if I see the same thing. Yeah, should be interesting. Thank you for that.
It might go great. Don't let my like personal qualms with stuff like that. But yeah. Yellow flags is
kind of like a, hey, watch out for some of these things versus like red flags, like steer clear at all costs. So
totally.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Cool. Yep. Thanks, Taylor. Tamim, you're up next.
Hi. So first, I had a couple questions, but first about the Loom video you send your clients when they book a meeting. Is that set up through like some automation or?
Yeah, I do it through, I can actually just show everybody. I just do it through Calendly. Everybody books. I'm a huge believer in having them book directly through Calendly. And then what I have, it's now called workflows. So I use a workflow when somebody books a thing with me. I do this. I wish this was like in chronological order, but 48 hours before the event starts, they get an email reminder that says, yeah, like, hey, Brendan from Growth Sprints made a video for you. And they will be like, when you see that in your subject line, you're like, oh, neat. And it's like, hey, Brendan here, looking forward to working with you to make sure we 100% focus on you during our call. I created this quick video. Hope it's helpful, blah, blah, blah. Looking forward to talking to you in about 48 hours and then their event time, etc. Right? Yeah. Done, no problem. Then 24 hours before, I send them an email that is very, very similar. Did you see the video I sent you? Also, reminder, you have a name with me at this time, et cetera, et cetera. Hey, if you haven't had a chance to check out the video, here it is again. And then here's some like standard Calendly stuff, right? Then 15 minutes before, I send them a text and an email because I want people to show up. I don't get ghosted very much on calls. It is very rare. So that's a pretty big deal for me. I think I might reference the video again in here. Like, it's pretty rare that people don't, PS, if you haven't had a chance to check out the How Growth Sprints Works video, now is the perfect time to watch it because they have 15 minutes before the call. So that's kind of how I set it up, just via automation, that goes out. I don't have to think about it and it just happens.
Hey, Brendan here. Let's get to the point. I'm running a live boot camp for agency owners and consultants, really anybody who wants to make more money by creating an automatic pipeline of clients from LinkedIn. No cold DMs, no ads, no spammy in-mail. If you want to get more clients just from posting every single day on LinkedIn, this is for you. Last year, I drove over $1 million in leads just by posting on LinkedIn every single day. Along with Ryan Stewart from Webrus and Blueprint Training, we'll be sharing our exact system for you to copy and paste in your own business. Live training, live feedback on your content, limited seats. It'll be a lot of fun because not only will I be walking you through this live setup step by step, giving you detailed guidance on how to create effective, engaging content for LinkedIn, how to identify the right audience on LinkedIn, building engaged audiences that view you as the thought leader in your space, and how to use warm selling methods to generate leads from content on LinkedIn. We'll also be giving you 20 proven LinkedIn post templates, a range of content formats to generate buzz, and a plug and play organizer just for LinkedIn. I'll also be giving you live coaching and feedback on your personal LinkedIn lead gen strategy. We have limited spots, and right now we're taking applications. Click the link and apply, and hopefully we'll get to work together.